What is the first thing you think of when you hear the word propaganda?
Well, propaganda brings up some negative connotations in my mind. It's advertising, certainly, but when it's put in terms of propaganda, I think of it as convincing people about negative things. But then if I think to the next level, I realize, well, not necessarily always negative.
What does propaganda mean specifically to you?
Well, propaganda is when you have a very strong message and you're delivering that strong message to a group of people in various ways, through film, through the written word, through speeches and the spoken word. So a very strong message.
How can propaganda be used positively and negatively?
I can see, like I say, I have to think about it to think more in terms of positive, but I can see that some great leaders have used propaganda to convince groups to move forward on a certain issue. Certainly civil rights propaganda is used where they show one side of the issue and then the other side of the issue and try to get people to move forward. So I can see that in very positive ways.
Where can you find propaganda in your everyday life?
Well, propaganda is all over, all around us. I use propaganda in my classroom as a teacher by trying to convince kids to get excited about learning. And so I present this great message like learning is the most fun thing in the world. That's propaganda, basically. So I use it all the time. My administrators use propaganda by convincing me that we have a system here at the middle school called ROAR. And we've had a lot of propaganda on ROAR. ROAR is the best thing since sliced bread. You know, ROAR will help the school. ROAR will change our climate. And I buy it because, you know, there's a thread of truth that appeals to me. And so I've been a subject of propaganda all year, I would say.
Where and to whom is propaganda traditionally targeted?
Well, again, I think I'm taking a fairly broad view of propaganda. So I would say that it's used everywhere and it's aimed at everyone. So from the advertisements on television, that's often very much propaganda because it's a little bit more of a one-sided kind of deal. But then, like I say, I use it in my classroom. I think we even use it, the radio that I listen to on the way into school is the NPR, and you know, it's much more objective propaganda, but you know, it's still talking. Right now we have a presidential election, and we are hearing a lot of propaganda around that. So everywhere is where it is.
What specific leaders or groups have used propaganda in history?
Well, of course, the first one that one would think about would be Nazi Germany and Hitler. Certainly, he was a very charismatic guy, and so he used propaganda to again, that mission statement, and brought everyone into his cause. So certainly he did that. But I mentioned earlier civil rights, and I think that Martin Luther King used propaganda. He was showing the side of nonviolence and really pushing nonviolence. And so his message, again, was somewhat one-sided. You know, let's be nonviolent and, you know, make these changes in society. And he had a group of followers that he continued to give that message to. So that's a way that I think propaganda was used in a more positive light by a leader as opposed to Nazi Germany.
When do you think the use of propaganda in history has been justified?
Well, again, with my interpretation of propaganda as being a positive thing at times, again, I'll use the civil rights movement, but I think that many of our presidents use propaganda, and it's like they're certainly on TV we see you know, House of Cards, and we see West Wing. We know that there are advisors surrounding the president who are churning, spinning the message, and that's a form of propaganda too. So I think it's used in our government quite heavily. It's used in any kind of service industry when we're trying to get people to change society. It's used in selling goods, so everywhere. And that's, you know, if you're looking at propaganda and advertising with a critical eye, then it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. You know, it's really up to the person to be educated and to be able to look at it critically.
Thank you for giving us your time.
Surely.
Really glad about critically, like thinking about it critically at the end. I'm really glad you said the part about thinking about it critically at the end, because that's one of the main things you're looking for.
Yeah, that's